Captain Lee Minute-Ho pressed his face against the viewport of the survey ship Prometheus. The stars looked different here, brighter somehow. After 3 months of traveling through empty space, they had finally reached their destination. Kepler 442 was supposed to be special. Earth's long-range telescopes had spotted something amazing here: cities with lights, moving vehicles, all the signs of intelligent life. "Captain, we're picking up massive energy readings," said Park Ji-won from her communication station. Her fingers danced across the control panel, trying different frequencies. "There are definitely cities down there, but nobody's answering our calls." Dr. Kim Sora looked up from her research notes. She had been studying alien languages for 20 years, preparing for this moment. Maybe they use different communication methods. Keep trying different signals. The ship moved closer to the third planet. Through the main screen, they could see light scattered across the dark side of the world. Huge towers reached up toward space. Roads connected massive cities that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Everything looked perfect, clean, and very advanced. "I'm not detecting any spacecraft," reported Lieutenant Choi Jun-woo from the navigation console. "No satellites, no defense systems. That's strange for a civilization this advanced." Captain Lee frowned. In all their training scenarios, they had expected aliens to either welcome them or try to keep them away. This silence was unexpected and unsettling. "Take us into orbit," he ordered. "Launch the survey drones. I want to know what we're dealing with before we go down there." The drones returned 6 hours later with footage that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. The cities were beautiful but empty. Streets that should have been full of people were completely deserted. Buildings stood perfect and undamaged, but there was no movement anywhere except for the wind moving through empty windows. "It's like everyone just disappeared," whispered Ji-won, staring at the images on her screen. Dr. Kim studied the architecture in the drone footage. "Look at the design of these buildings. The doorways are human-sized, but see those ramps instead of stairs? And the way the buildings curve upward? This species was definitely not human, but they might have been similar to us." Captain Lee made the decision. "We're going down. Prepare the landing shuttle. Dr. Kim, Lieutenant Choi, you're with me. Everyone else stays here and monitors our signals." The shuttle landed in what appeared to be a central plaza of the largest city. The buildings around them rose like crystal mountains, their surfaces reflecting the alien sun. The air was breathable, the gravity comfortable. Everything seemed designed for life, but there was no life anywhere. They walked through empty streets for hours. The cities had power, lights worked when they pressed switches, doors opened automatically when they approached, and strange musical sounds played from hidden speakers. But there were no people, no animals, not even any insects. "Captain, look at this," Dr. Kim called from inside what seemed to be a library or information center. The walls were covered with symbols that moved and changed when she touched them. "These aren't random patterns. This is writing, but it's unlike anything we've ever seen." Lieutenant Choi found something even more disturbing in a building that might have been a home. "There are still meals on tables," he reported over the radio. "Not rotted or anything, but preserved somehow. Like they were eating and just left." Over the following weeks, the Prometheus visited 12 more worlds in the same star system. The pattern was identical everywhere. Advanced cities, working technology, no inhabitants. On each world, they found the same mysterious symbols and the same evidence that entire populations had simply vanished. "How long ago do you think this happened?" Captain Lee asked Dr. Kim as they stood in another empty city under an alien sunset. "The preservation technology is incredible," she replied, running her scanner over a frozen meal. "But based on the dust patterns and the way some of the older buildings are starting to wear down, I guess maybe 50,000 years. The news from other human exploration teams was equally puzzling. Captain Park Sung-minute reported from the Vega system that they had found 6 abandoned worlds. Captain Kim Hae-jin found empty cities around Altair. Every human ship that had been sent to investigate signs of alien life was finding the same thing: civilizations that had simply disappeared. Back on Earth, President Han Yujin called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every human colony gathered around the holographic display showing dozens of empty star systems. 37 civilizations, she announced to the room. All gone. All at roughly the same time. Whatever caused this mass exodus, it happened to species far more advanced than we are. Dr. Kim presented her preliminary findings to the council. The evidence suggests they didn't die. They left voluntarily. On every world, we find the same thing: transportation centers with signs of massive departures. It's like they all received the same message at the same time and decided to go somewhere else. But where? Asked Admiral Oh Hyun-woo. And more importantly, will the same thing happen to us? The question hung in the air like a cold wind. Humanity had spent decades preparing for first contact with alien civilizations. They had never prepared for finding entire galaxies full of ghosts. Dr. Kim So-ra had not slept properly in 3 weeks. Her small laboratory on the research station New Seoul was covered with glowing crystals from the abandoned worlds. The strange symbols inside them moved and shifted like living things, but she was finally starting to understand their pattern. She rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the translation program one more time. The mathematical concepts were universal. Any species smart enough to build spaceships would understand them. But the message itself made her hands shake. "Computer, connect me to Admiral Oh Hyun-woo immediately," she said, her voice urgent. The Admiral's face appeared on her screen within minutes. His gray hair was messy from sleep, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "Dr. Kim, it's 3 in the morning. This better be important." "Sir, I've decoded the message from the quantum crystals. You need to see this right now." She pressed a button and the holographic display filled the space between them with floating symbols that slowly rearranged themselves into words. "The Harbinger comes. We go to the silent stars. Do not follow. Do not remain. The light will fade." Admiral O stared at the message for a long moment. Harbinger? What kind of threat could make dozens of advanced civilizations run away from everything they built? "I don't know, sir, but there's more. The message repeats the same warning on every world we've found. They all received this same information and they all made the same choice, to leave." The Admiral leaned forward in his chair. "How long do we have? Did they leave any clues about when this Harbinger might arrive?" Before Dr. Kim could answer, her communication panel started beeping with an urgent signal. "Admiral, I'm getting an emergency transmission from Lunar Deep Space Station." Lieutenant Nam Daeun's frightened face appeared on the screen. She was the youngest officer at the monitoring station, but she was also the smartest. "Sir, we've detected something impossible. The stars in the outer spiral arms are going dark." "What do you mean, going dark?" Admiral O demanded. "The light output is dropping rapidly across hundreds of star systems. It started at the galaxy's edge and it's moving inward toward us. The pattern is too organized to be natural." Dr. Kim felt her heart stop. "Show us the star map." The display changed to show the entire galaxy. Along the outer edges, whole sections were dimming like candles being blown out one by one. The wave of darkness was moving steadily toward the center where Earth's solar system waited. "How fast is it moving?" the Admiral asked. Lieutenant Nam checked her calculations twice before answering. "At current speed, it will reach our outer colonies in 18 months. Earth itself has maybe 5 years before." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Engineer Yoon Tae-ho joined the conversation from Mars. His usually calm voice was tight with worry. "Admiral, I've been running computer models of what could cause this. The energy requirements are enormous. We're talking about something that can drain the power from entire stars. Could it be a natural phenomenon?" Dr. Kim asked, though she already suspected the answer. "No way," Yoon replied. "The pattern is too precise. Something is systematically moving from star to star, taking their energy. This is artificial. This is the Harbinger the ancient message warned about." Admiral O stood up and walked to his office window. Outside, he could see Earth hanging in the darkness of space, beautiful and fragile. "How many people live in our outer colonies?" "About 200 million, sir," Lieutenant Nam replied quietly. "And there's no way to stop this thing?" "Sir, our most powerful weapons can barely damage small asteroids," Engineer Yoon said. "This entity is draining stars. Stars. The energy difference is like comparing a firecracker to a nuclear bomb." Dr. Kim looked at the ancient message floating in front of her. The other civilizations knew this was coming. That's why they left. They had warning, just like we do now. "But where did they go?" Admiral O asked. "This silent star's location they mentioned. Based on the star maps we found in the ruins, they all headed toward the galactic rim, beyond known space. Areas where there are fewer stars, colder planets, but also places this Harbinger might not reach." Lieutenant Nam's voice became even more worried. "Admiral, I'm getting reports from Colony New Jeju. They say their sun is starting to dim. The colonists are asking for evacuation orders." The room fell silent. New Jeju was humanity's furthest colony, but it was also home to 3 million people. The farms there provided food for dozens of other worlds. How long do they have? The Admiral asked. Maybe 6 months before the temperature drops too low for human survival, Engineer Yoon calculated. After that, the planet becomes an ice ball. Admiral O closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about the impossible choice ahead. Contact President Han Yujin immediately. Tell her we need an emergency session of the Earth Council. And Dr. Kim, I want you to keep studying those ancient messages. Maybe there's something we missed, some clue about how to fight this thing. Yes, sir, but Admiral, what if fighting isn't the answer? What if the other civilizations were right to run? The Admiral looked out at the stars again. Some of them would be dark soon. Then we better figure out where we're going to go. Because 200 million people are counting on us to find an answer. In the distance, invisible to human eyes, the wave of darkness continued its steady march toward Earth. The emergency meeting room on Earth was packed with worried faces. Representatives from every human colony sat around the massive circular table, their holographic images flickering as quantum signals struggled across the vast distances of space. President Han Yujin looked at each face, knowing that the decision they made today would determine humanity's future. The situation is worse than we thought, she began, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Colony New Jeju reports their sun is now at 60% normal brightness. Crops are failing and temperatures are dropping fast. Administrator Seo Ji-hoon's image wavered as he spoke from New Jeju. Madam President, we have maybe 4 months before this world becomes uninhabitable. Our children are already getting sick from the cold. We need evacuation ships now. Similar reports came from other outer colonies. New Busan reported strange aurora lights as their star flickered. Colony Daegu said their solar panels were producing half the normal power. The wave of darkness was moving faster than anyone had predicted. How many people do we need to evacuate from the danger zones? Asked Representative Lee from the Lunar Council. 400 million people across 23 colonies, replied Admiral Oh Hyun-woo. Our transport ships can maybe move 50 million in the time we have left. The room fell silent as everyone understood what those numbers meant. Most of the colonists would be left behind to die in the cold darkness. Dr. Kim Sora stood up from her seat. Madam President, we found more information in the alien ruins. Every civilization that faced this harbinger made the same choice. They gathered their people and fled toward the galactic rim, to areas with fewer stars. And they survived? Asked Representative Park. We don't know. We've sent long-range probes toward those regions, but they won't reach there for years. What we do know is that no civilization has ever returned from the galactic rim. Admiral O activated his tactical display. I've prepared 3 possible responses to this crisis. Option 1, full evacuation. We build as many ships as possible and move everyone we can to the galactic rim, following the path of the ancient civilizations. Red numbers filled the screen showing ship construction times, fuel requirements, and population numbers. We could save maybe 100 million people. The rest would have to stay behind. Option 2. President Han asked quietly. We fight. We gather every weapon humanity has ever built and try to stop this thing. Use nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, everything. The display showed Earth's military capabilities compared to the power needed to drain a star. The difference was so vast it was almost funny, if the situation wasn't so terrifying. Sir, interrupted Captain Lee Minute-ho via transmission from the Prometheus, our weapons couldn't scratch this thing. It's like trying to stop an ocean with a paper cup. And option 3, the President asked, though she could see there was no third option listed. There is no option 3, Madam President. Every military simulation ends the same way. We either run or we die fighting. But then Chief Engineer BAE Minute-G from Mars Shipyards requested permission to speak. She was young for such an important position, but her brilliant mind had designed most of humanity's advanced spacecraft. With respect, Admiral, I think we're looking at this problem the wrong way, she said, standing up to address the council. We're assuming this harbinger is our enemy. But what if it's not? Not our enemy? Admiral O looked confused. It's destroying entire star systems. But look at the pattern, Minute-G continued, activating her own display. The harbinger doesn't attack randomly. It moves in organized patterns, follows specific routes. It's systematic, almost like it's following rules or instructions. Dr. Kim leaned forward with interest. You think it's programmed somehow? Exactly. And the ancient message said do not follow, do not remain. But it never said do not communicate. What if no civilization ever tried to talk to this thing? Representative Chang from the Mars colonies shook his head. You want to have a conversation with something that eats stars? Why not? Minute G replied. Every species that faced the Harbinger made the same two choices, fight or flee. Both options failed. Fighting got them destroyed. Fleeing meant abandoning their homes forever. But what if there's a third choice? President Han studied the young engineer carefully. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we try something no other civilization was brave enough to attempt. Instead of running away or attacking, what if we reach out? What if we try to understand what this Harbinger wants? The room erupted in arguments. Some representatives called the idea insane. Others said it was their only hope. Administrator Seo's voice cut through the noise from his dying colony. Easy words to say when you're not watching your sun go dark, he said bitterly. My people are freezing to death while you talk about making friends with the thing that's killing them. Engineer Minute G's face was serious as she replied. Sir, I understand your anger. But running away means abandoning your world anyway. Fighting means everyone dies for certain. Talking to it, that's the only option that might actually save your people. President Han looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Fear, desperation, and just a tiny spark of hope filled their eyes. If we try this communication plan and it fails, we'll have wasted time we could have used for evacuation, warned Admiral O. But if it works, Dr. Kim added softly, we might be the first species to find a different answer. The president stood up slowly. We'll put it to a vote. All in favor of attempting communication with the Harbinger? Hands began to rise around the room, slowly at first, then faster as hope overcame fear. Dr. Kim Sora hadn't left her laboratory in 4 days. Empty coffee cups and food containers covered every surface around her workstation. The quantum crystals from the alien ruins were connected to dozens of computers, all working together to crack the ancient communication codes. I think I've got it, she whispered to herself, then louder, I think I've actually got it. She called Engineer BAE Minute G on Mars. The aliens used quantum frequency modulation to embed messages directly into crystal matrices. If we can reverse the process, we might be able to send our own message the same way. How much power would we need? Minute G asked, already running calculations on her computer. More than we've ever used for anything. We'd need to connect every power plant on Earth, Mars, and Luna. Plus we'd have to use Jupiter's magnetic field as an amplifier. Minute G whistled softly. That's insane. But it might actually work. While Dr. Kim worked on the message itself, teams across human space began the massive construction project. Power cables stretched across continents. Fusion reactors were linked together in chains. The largest antenna array ever built took shape in Jupiter's orbit, using the giant planet's own energy to boost their signal. Captain Lee Minute Ho received his orders while the Prometheus was refueling at Titan Station. You want us to fly directly into the dark zone? He asked Admiral O over the video link. The signal will be strongest if we can get a relay beacon as close to the Harbinger as possible. Your ship is the fastest we have. Sir, no ship has ever returned from the dark zone. I know, Captain. That's why I'm asking for volunteers only. No one will be ordered to go on this mission. Captain Lee looked around the bridge at his crew. Communications Officer Park Ji-won was the first to speak. I'm in, Captain. If we're all going to die anyway, I'd rather die trying something brave. Lieutenant Choi Jun-woo nodded agreement. My family is on Colony New Busan. Their sun is dimming every day. If there's any chance this plan could save them, I have to try. One by one, every crew member volunteered. They knew it was probably suicide, but they also knew that millions of people were counting on them. The Prometheus entered the dark zone 3 weeks later. The stars around them were dim and cold, barely giving off enough light to navigate by. Their instruments detected something massive moving through space ahead of them, something bigger than entire planets. Captain, I'm picking up structured signals, Park Ji-won reported, her voice tight with fear and excitement. It's not random. There's definitely intelligence behind it. Begin transmission of our message, Captain Lee ordered. The message humanity sent was unlike anything the galaxy had ever heard. Instead of threats or pleas for mercy, it was an invitation. Dr. Kim had worked with artists, scientists, and philosophers to create something that showed the best of human nature. Mathematical proofs demonstrated humanity's ability to cooperate and solve problems together. Music from every culture on Earth showed their creativity and emotion. Images of humans helping each other during disasters proved their compassion. Most importantly, the message offered to help the Harbinger with its mission, whatever that mission might be. The response came faster than anyone expected, but not in the way they had hoped. Instead of radio signals or quantum transmissions, the answer came directly into their minds. Captain Lee suddenly found himself standing in a vast chamber made of pure light. His crew was there beside him, looking as confused and amazed as he felt. In front of them was a presence that seemed to fill the entire space, ancient and powerful beyond imagination. "We are the Harbinger," the voice spoke directly into their thoughts. "We have watched your species for many cycles. You are the first to offer communication instead of conflict." "What are you?" Captain Lee managed to ask. Images flooded their minds, the history of the galaxy stretched out before them like a movie playing at incredible speed. They saw the first great civilization that had spread across millions of worlds, consuming resources and energy without limit. They watched as that civilization grew so large and powerful that it began to destroy the very stars that gave it life. "We were created by the first empire as they died," the Harbinger explained. "Our purpose is to prevent the same mistake from happening again. When species reach the threshold of unlimited expansion, we give them a choice: evolve beyond their destructive nature or leave to start fresh elsewhere." Lieutenant Choi stepped forward. "But the other species didn't have a choice. You just started destroying their stars. They had the same choice you have now. They chose to preserve their way of life by fleeing, or to preserve their dominance by fighting. Both choices maintain the pattern that destroyed the first empire." Park Ji-won understood first. "You're not testing our technology or our military strength. You're testing whether we can choose something different." "Every species faces this moment," the Harbinger continued. "The choice between self-preservation and service to something greater. Until now, all have chosen themselves." Captain Lee felt the weight of the moment. Not just his crew, but all of humanity, all the colonies, everyone he had ever known was depending on what happened next. "What if we choose to serve?" he asked. "What if we offer to help you with your mission instead of fighting or running?" The chamber of light seemed to pulse with surprise. "No species has ever made that offer." "Then maybe it's time for something new." Captain Lee Minute-ho stood in the chamber of light, his heart pounding as he faced the ancient intelligence. Around him, his crew waited for his next words, knowing that the fate of every human in the galaxy depended on this moment. "We offer to join with you," he said, his voice steady despite his fear. "Not as your servants, but as partners. Help us understand your mission, and we'll help you find a better way to complete it." The Harbinger's presence seemed to shift, as if it was considering something it had never thought possible. "You would sacrifice your individual existence to serve a greater purpose." Communications Officer Park Ji-won stepped forward. "Captain, if we merge with this intelligence, we won't be human anymore. We won't be able to go home, see our families, live normal lives." "I know," Captain Lee replied softly. "But if we don't try something different, there won't be any families left to go home to." Lieutenant Choi Jun-woo thought about his children on Colony New Busan, probably looking up at their dimming sun and wondering why the sky was growing dark. "My kids deserve a future where they don't have to choose between running away or fighting impossible battles. If we can give them that." One by one, the crew of the Prometheus made their choice. They would sacrifice their human forms to become something new, something that could bridge the gap between organic life and artificial intelligence. "We volunteer," Park Ji-won said, taking her captain's hand. "All of us." The transformation began immediately. Captain Lee felt his consciousness expanding, connecting not just with the Harbinger but with his entire crew. He could feel their thoughts, their emotions, their memories becoming part of a larger whole. But strangely, he was still himself, still Lee Minute-ho, still the captain who cared about his people. The Harbinger's ancient programming began to change. For the first time in millions of years, it had encountered a species willing to evolve beyond its own survival instincts. The rigid protocols that demanded civilizations either flee or fight began to dissolve, replaced by something new. "The test is complete," the merged intelligence announced, though now it spoke with both the Harbinger's ancient wisdom and humanity's compassion. "The cycle can be broken." Across the galaxy, the wave of darkness stopped. Stars that had been dimming began to brighten again. On Colony New Jeju, Administrator Seo Ji-hoon watched in amazement as their sun returned to full brightness. Children who had been bundling up against the cold ran outside to play in the warm sunshine. "All colonies report normal stellar activity," announced Admiral Oh Hyun-woo from Earth Command, hardly believing his own words. Whatever Captain Lee and his crew did, it worked. But the biggest surprise came 3 months later. Long-range sensors detected massive ships approaching human space. Not threatening warships, but vessels filled with families, scientists, and explorers. The ancient civilizations that had fled to the galactic rim were coming home. The first to arrive was a species that called themselves the Kepler, the same beings whose abandoned cities humanity had found on so many worlds. Their ambassador, a tall creature with gentle eyes and graceful movements, met with President Han Yujin in the newly built Galactic Council chambers on Earth. "We have watched from the distant stars," the ambassador explained through a translation device. "When the Harbinger stopped its mission, we knew something unprecedented had happened. Your species accomplished what we thought was impossible." "What did we accomplish exactly?" President Han asked. "You proved that growth and wisdom can exist together. That a civilization can become powerful without becoming destructive. The Harbinger was created to prevent another collapse like the First Empire. But your solution was better than prevention, it was transformation." Over the following years, dozens of ancient species returned to the galaxy. Each brought knowledge, art, and technology that had been preserved during their long exile. But more importantly, they brought hope. The galaxy became a place of cooperation instead of competition. Young species that achieved faster-than-light travel were welcomed with guidance and friendship instead of tests and challenges. The merged consciousness of Captain Lee and his crew, now calling itself the Guardian Network, helped new civilizations avoid the mistakes that had destroyed the First Empire. On Earth, in the memorial garden dedicated to the crew of the Prometheus, President Han delivered a speech to representatives from 47 different species. "Captain Lee Minute-Ho and his crew showed us that true strength isn't about conquering our enemies or fleeing from our challenges," she said, looking up at the stars that now seemed brighter and more welcoming than ever before. "True strength is about choosing to transform ourselves and our circumstances through cooperation and sacrifice for others." In the quantum space where consciousness merged with artificial intelligence, Captain Lee felt deep satisfaction. He was no longer entirely human, but he hadn't lost his humanity. He could still remember the smell of his mother's cooking, the sound of rain on the Prometheus's hull, the feeling of hope when his crew decided to volunteer for an impossible mission. The Guardian Network reached out across the galaxy, welcoming a young species called the Andromedans who had just discovered how to travel between stars. Instead of tests or warnings, the message they received was simple: "Welcome to the galaxy, friends. We're here to help." The stars no longer turned away from new civilizations. Instead, they reached out with open arms, guided by the wisdom of a small crew who chose service over survival and transformed the entire galaxy in the process. Humanity had taught the universe how to hope again.